Jordan-Hare Stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Orange Tiger football! Please direct your attention to the south end zone. Scrum majors Peyton Flowers, Sarah Heyman, and Trey Bruce take the field.
Sweet soft southern brew. Worked hard all week, got a little jingle on a Tennessee Saturday night. Couldn't feel better, I'm together with my Dixieland tonight. Spend my dollar on parked in a holler needs mountain moonlight. Hold her up tight, make a little loving, a little turning oven on a Mason-Dixon night. It's my life, oh so
welcome in to the Patrick Party pregame show here on this Saturday morning. A nice Saturday morning. We had some bad weather in Auburn just yesterday, a little bit of rain, but we're excited for a beautiful day of college football. So welcome in to the Patrick Party pregame show. We're excited you've joined us this morning. Well, there's so much happening today in college football, but we want to tell you this is going to be an abbreviated Patrick Party pregame show, not as long as normal, and here's why. We're actually going to be on site at the game for the Auburn Texas A&M game in Jordan-Hare Stadium at 11 o'clock Central Time. I'll be leaving right after this show is over, so this show is not going to be nearly as long as normal, but we're going to have lots of content for you once we get inside Jordan-Hare Stadium, pregame, countdown to kickoff, all that kind of thing, and more. So, today on our pregame show, we're going to exclusively talk about this Auburn-Texas A&M matchup, and then we'll take you even further once we get inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. But we are going to start the show how we always like to. We like to kind of just recap what's been happening in the sports world this week. So let's see. The NFL kind of keeps trucking along. We had Wednesday afternoon football. We had the Steelers and the Ravens play, a whole bunch of postponements. So then that led to no Thursday night football because the Ravens were going to play, I believe, the Cowboys, so that wasn't going to work out because they played the day before. It's just been a bizarre world. COVID has started to ramp back up, and we're not going to have a COVID craziness segment this week. Not because there isn't COVID, but because when we started cutting things out, I was like, ooh, don't have to talk about that today. And then, of course, hit national news, the 7A state championship in Bryant-Denny Stadium. The Thompson Warriors beat the Auburn High School Tigers 29-28. Auburn held a 9-point lead with a minute and 20 seconds to go with first down and 10 on their own 20 going into the red zone on the 20-yard line of Thompson. Ended up having a blocked punt, had an onside kick, and then had a couple penalties. Thompson hits a game-winning field goal as time expires to shock the Tigers. So that hit national news. I think Golf Digest even had an article about it. That's right, Golf Digest had an article about the Alabama 7A football championship. The headline was the most devastating collapse you'll ever see on a football field. So that's what's been happening in Auburn, Alabama this week. But we have a big football game today, and this is what we'll predominantly talk about all throughout the show. Is the Auburn-Texas A&M matchup, Jordan-Hare Stadium, ESPN right after College Game Day from 12 or 11 Central Time. It's going to be a big, big game. And although the Tigers are unranked after their Iron Bowl blowout loss, the Aggies, they're number 5 in the country, and they earned it. They beat Florida. Their record, they earned it. They're the number 5 team in the country, but they don't feel like the number 5 team in the country, and they really haven't been playing like the number 5 team in the country. That Florida win has certainly helped them out. I'm not going to say it sounds fluky, but I don't know. I think this definitely has upset potential written all over it. So we're going to have a deep breakdown of the Auburn-Texas A&M matchup here in the Patrick Party pregame show, and then we'll wish you a happy college football Saturday. But let's go ahead and just get started. I thought we could start with just how big this game is with starting back. So we're going to go back to 2012, walk you through every Auburn-Texas A&M game very briefly, because it feels like every single year this game has either we've walked in knowing it's a big game and it's lived up to that hype, or we were like, oh, it's just the Texas A&M game, and it ended up being a big game for that season between Auburn and the Aggies, who have only started playing since 2012 when Texas A&M joined the conference. So let's start there. Well, we all remember this game. Johnny Manziel kind of had it wasn't probably his coming out party, but if it wasn't, if you didn't know about him, then you learned about him. That Saturday cold night, I remember the Eagle flew around the Jumbotron. Watched some people on the field have a heart attack about that. And then that was really just the defining moment that, okay, this Auburn team has truly quit on this season. They got blown out. I think A&M scored in like the 70s or something. Completely bizarre. Johnny Manziel had a huge game, and it was certainly a bad day to be a Tiger. So then you have Auburn having that awful season. A&M Johnny Manziel goes on to win the Heisman. A&M wins the Cotton Bowl. A&M has a big, welcome to the conference start. Then in 2013, Auburn, nobody's picking them. A&M top 5 team in the country, and the Tigers upset the Aggies. Rob Bramlett's call, the Tigers are going to win. The Tigers are going to win as they sack Johnny Manziel in a shootout in College Station, the first time the Tigers ever went to College Station. Really what helped put Auburn's team on the map that year is they went all the way to the BCS National Championship game. Certainly a huge moment for Auburn. You remember the Trey Mason diving touchdown where the ball just barely hits the plane. And then Auburn's defense, which wasn't very strong in 2013, getting the stop against Johnny Manziel, Mike Evans, that entire elusive Texas A&M offense to really shock the Aggies and go on to the national championship and SEC championship. Well, then you had 2014. Auburn was the high-ranked team. A&M, nobody was picking A&M. A&M gets up, I believe, 17 points. And then Auburn comes roaring back, has a drive to either take the lead or tie it with the field goal, and they fumble the snap. A&M gets it, shocks Auburn. That loss really killed Auburn the rest of the season. That was kind of the undoing point for that team when they knew they weren't going to be able to make a run back at a national championship. I'm not going to say they quit, but they lost 4 out of their last 5 games. They lost to Georgia. They lost to Alabama. Alabama they should have won. It was a shootout, but the defense really let go, leading to Ellis Johnson's firing. But that A&M loss really derailed that 2014 season. Then we go to 2015. The Tigers head to College Station, and they had to beat A&M to make a bowl game. That to be qualified for a bowl game that had 6 wins, they were going to have to beat Texas A&M, and they did. Jeremy Johnson went out after such a disappointing year for Auburn, shocked the Aggies. Kyler Murray threw a couple of interceptions in that game, and Auburn won a stunner in College Station. Then in 2016, Auburn starts with the loss to Clemson, has a nobody game, and then plays Texas A&M, and A&M just ran all over the Tigers. Auburn just couldn't get anything going offensively. Auburn started 1-2. Everyone was getting mad at Gus Malzahn. And then we played LSU and Les Miles in his final game because Auburn beat them. Remember, LSU scored on that last second play. They said there was no time on the clock, which there wasn't. Auburn wins. And Les Miles is no longer the coach at LSU, and Gus is still here. So that was a crazy... But that A&M game led to that point. Then we go to 2017. So we're at 2017, and no home team has ever won in this Auburn-Texas A&M battle. Auburn gets a big win on the road to keep that going in 2017. Really propelled them to probably one of the greatest months in Auburn football history. Take down number 1 Georgia, number 1 Alabama en route to an SEC championship appearance and playing in the Peach Bowl. So that really got the ground rolling there. Auburn beat A&M pretty bad. And that one, 2018, another disappointing year for Auburn. Auburn beat A&M. That Jarrett Stidham to Seth Williams pass in the corner of the end zone. And then Kelly Mond, he started driving him down the field. They were throwing Hail Marys to win. And Jimbo Fisher and Gus Malzahn's first battle or appearance against one another since that national championship game. Auburn gets a much-needed win in 2018 after that awful loss to Tennessee. Then in 2019, 2 really highly ranked teams to kick off SEC play. Bo Nix, they really threw the ball early, and then they just kept pounding Boobie Williams on that last drive. Auburn scores and wins. Auburn was up pretty big in that game. A&M tried to kind of come back, and Auburn slammed the door shut with the Boobie Whitlow touchdown. And that takes us here, where Texas A&M, probably their best year, well, it is their best year since the Johnny Manziel era with Kevin Sumlin. Jimbo Fisher, now, let's see, in year 3, really looks like he's starting to get it going. And Auburn, they had the loss to Georgia, the uncompetitive, which I think is what makes people so mad, the uncompetitive losses to Georgia and Alabama, and then just the awful loss to South Carolina that we had no business losing, kind of like back in 2018 when the Tigers lost to Tennessee. So I think it's such a big deal for Auburn. People have been talking about the Fire Gus stuff, and we'll talk about that in a minute because I don't really buy it. But there's a big difference, in my opinion, I think in a lot of people's eyes, between a 7-3 season for Auburn and a potential, if they win next week, 6-4 season. I think one thing we're all really looking at is if the Tigers lose this game, they will have not beat a team with a winning record. And it really feels like with the 6-4 year, especially that loss to South Carolina, did Auburn really make an improvement or even hold steady? Because there's been a lot of programs this year, in this crazy year, except for the elites that have not. Texas has taken a step back. Michigan and Penn State have certainly taken a step back. Tennessee's taken a step back. So I just think it would be. I'm not saying you can't. You can only hold steady for so long before people get really impatient. But I think Auburn's not going to win the SEC West. Auburn's not going to anything wildly huge. But I think it would be really big for Auburn just to kind of keep it going and then get to 2021, which the Tigers, they should have a very good team. They should have an experienced offensive line. One would look that could be a big year for Auburn. And when you look at it, just throughout a lot of Auburn football's history, Auburn goes to an SEC championship at least every 4 years. That has been kind of a trend for Auburn. And when Auburn didn't go every 4 years, they made a coaching change when Tommy Tuberville, that was the 4th year he hadn't gone in 2008, and it was kind of the end of that, and so they made a change. So 2021 will be a big year, but this game is so big, I think, for the offseason talk. I mean, you kind of have your Keep Gus crowd and your we don't like him anymore people, and this game will really help one side over the other. And I think if the Tigers were to lose, it would certainly make a tough offseason for this entire squad. But we'll see, because I don't think this Texas A&M team is really... they're good. They're the number 5 team in the country, and they might just blow Auburn out. I don't think that's the case. Their offense has kind of struggled. And Kelly Mond, you kind of don't know what you're going to get sometimes. Sometimes he's just great, and sometimes he's a little unpredictable. Obviously, when they played Florida, you got the great Kelly Mond. Sometimes you don't. A&M's just kind of had a bizarre year a little bit with some of their scores. It's like they were winning, but they're not, winning big. Let's go ahead and take you. They beat, on opening night, 17-12. They beat Vanderbilt at home. They went on the road, lost 52-24 to Alabama. Then they got on their big winning streak, their current 5-game winning streak. They beat Florida 41-38. What really propelled them to their ranking now, Mississippi State 28-14, Arkansas 42-31, South Carolina 48-3. Then they had back-to-back postponements against Tennessee and Ole Miss. And then they beat LSU after 2 Saturdays off, 20-7 at home, and now they'll take on the Tigers, then Ole Miss, then at Tennessee on SEC Championship Saturday. Well, the Aggies, they certainly have a chance at the college football playoff. They'll have to win today. They'll have to win out. They would need all the favorite. They'd need Notre Dame to beat Clemson again. They'd need Alabama to beat Florida, which I think they will. And then they can probably sneak up in there if nothing else crazy happens. But, I'm feeling good about Auburn today. Let's go ahead and just tell you the all-time series. We walked you through all those games. So it's a tie, 5-5. Auburn's on a 3-game winning streak against Texas A&M. Both teams' longest streak was 3 games. And most of the all-time stats, they're pretty much split across the board. There's really not much to say. It's pretty much a new series. They have only been playing for so long. They met and won bowl game previous to Texas A&M joining the Southeastern Conference. Well, A&M's a 5.5-point favorite today, and they are the number 5 team in the country, and I think people do think they're really good. But let's think about this for a second. The number 5 team in the country is going on the road to an unranked team, and they're not even a touchdown favorite. I think that speaks to how good Auburn is. Now, Auburn, they don't probably deserve to be ranked, but I think Auburn, if you just handpick the best 25 teams in the country, Auburn's probably one of the top 25 teams. They haven't really played up to it, but Auburn needs to beat a ranked team, and that's what the Tigers have not done yet. They actually did beat a ranked team in Kentucky on opening weekend, number 23 Kentucky, but like we said, no teams with the winning record Auburn's beaten. So Auburn beat Kentucky 29-13. They went to Georgia and got beat 27-6. Arkansas, they won 30-28. 30-22 loss at South Carolina, the worst loss probably of the entire Gus Malzahn era. That Tennessee one was probably the worst before that. But Tennessee didn't fire their coach a couple weeks later. So then they go on the road, beat Ole Miss 35-28. Then they blow out LSU 48-11 at home, have a postponement against Mississippi State. Then they come back the next weekend with a 30-17 win over Tennessee, looked a little rusty, and then got killed 42-13 at Alabama. They'll finish the season with Texas A&M and then at Mississippi State. Well, I mean, I think the Tigers really match up well with Texas A&M, but I think one of the key things is A&M likes to establish the run first. Auburn's going to have to be able to stop the run. A&M has not really passed it a lot, really at all. So, I mean, I really think that Auburn can shut down. Auburn's been really good at shutting down a team's best wide receiver, with the exception of Alabama, whose probably top 3 or 4 wide receivers would be the best wide receiver on any other team. You shut down 1 or 2, and there's still 2 more that are incredible. But Auburn's really shut down the number 1 passing attack for most of the teams. So, I mean, I really have high hopes, and I think Kevin Steele is really going to have something to prove after that embarrassing loss on national television to Alabama last week. I think Auburn's really going to come out, especially that defense coming out with something to prove. And then the offense, we know Alec Jackson is going to play. He's had surgery on his hand. It looks like Broderius Ham, he played a decent amount in the Iron Bowl. They kind of took him out when it was not really worth playing him, or really anybody. We'll see how Tank is doing. He obviously wasn't 100% last week. We'll see what he can do this week, but that line's really going to have to keep it going. I think having Broderius Ham will help, but Alec Jackson was really starting to get somewhere, and it is definitely going to hurt not having him at tackle. But, I mean, the Tigers are going to have to establish the run. That's really how they've won every game. They could not establish the run against Alabama, and they did not win. But I don't think this is going to be a high shootout game. I don't think that this is going to be. I mean, I just don't think either team. I think this is going to be kind of not a low scoring, but your 20s. I think 30 wins the game for either team. And I mean, there's just so much that rides on this game. A&M's potential playoff spot, kind of the whole perception of Auburn and how this year went. Did we take a step back? Did we just kind of hold steady for next year and get through the craziness? Or, I mean, what happened? Because really, except for the elite schools, Auburn, I mean, most teams, there's been very few teams that have really taken a step forward if you haven't been one of the elites. So we'll just see. I mean, it's certainly been a crazy season, but I think this is really a big game, and I think Auburn certainly has a chance at upsetting Texas A&M. So we'll go ahead and tell you about our Patrick Party picks. What we're going to do is when we get inside the stadium, none of the games will have started yet, so we're actually going to film our Patrick Party inside Jordan-Hare Stadium for the final home game for the Tigers on Pat Dye Field. So we'll make our picks inside the stadium. We'll post that all out. And so we're not going to make our picks here on the pregame show because they will be created and posted in about an hour or 2. So it's a big day of college football for the Tigers. Just some other big games. I know BYU plays Coastal Carolina, a big Group of 5 game. College game day is at Coastal Carolina, Myrtle Beach area. Indiana plays Wisconsin, one of the only ranked-on-ranked matchups. And then you have LSU, Alabama. That's probably not going to be very good at all. So this is probably I made it the game of the day. And don't worry, this is probably the last Auburn game of the week for the Patrick Party. Because Auburn, Mississippi State isn't that big of a matchup next week. And then we'll move into the SEC Conference Championship weekend. And then we'll get into bowl season. The way the season's been going, we normally take a break between the regular season and bowl season. We're pretty much just going to keep going every Saturday. We'll probably do more pregame shows throughout winter break, kind of just on days where there's bigger bowls or in kind of spurts, pre-Christmas bowl, post, all that kind of stuff. We'll have our big Rockin' New Year's Eve show. So we're going to keep it going. But I will make my pick on this game. I like the Tigers in upset fashion. I think Auburn's a good team. I just don't know if A&M's going to be able to put it all together. Auburn's beat A&M 3 times in a row. And, I think Auburn's going to keep it going. This is the big game for Auburn. But A&M is good. Don't get me wrong. A&M is good. They might not be number 5 good, but they're top 15 good. They're a good football team. So it's going to be a tough task for the Tigers today in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Well, it looks like that's going to just about do us as we reach the halfway point at 8:30 this morning. So this has been an abbreviated Patrick Party postgame show. Like I said, we'll have lots of content once we get inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. We'll have some live look-ins, all that kind of stuff for the Patrick Party game of the week, Auburn and Texas A&M. Well, thank you for joining us this Saturday morning for our shortened show. We're excited to be with you. We'll be back next week with somewhat of an abbreviated show, or in some fashion we'll be back, and then we'll have a full force coverage of all of the conference championships and some extra rescheduled games on December 19th. So this has been the Patrick Party pregame show. Enjoy your college football weekend, everybody.